everybody, and welcome back to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast. As always, I'm Ryan, joined by my handsome friends.
Oh, I'm Derick.
Yep, I'm Chris.
Come on, I said handsome, and
yeah, that's the part that threw me off.
You should immediately know. Where's that self-confidence?
I'm used to hearing the handsomest man that ever was.
The handsomest man's.
I'm Derick.
So you can probably tell by what we're wearing that this is going to be yet another
Studio
Eagles-related episode.
Close.
It is not the episode we were wanting to record when we were going to when we were planning to do our Eagles regular season recap. We had hopes of, a division title, maybe a first round bye, maybe some wins to go into down the stretch to build some confidence.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten the exact opposite of that. It has been a tumultuous and depressing last month and a half of Eagles football, with not a lot of positives and a shit ton of negatives. Let's just look back at where we were. What was it? I think it was November 26th, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And the Eagles were coming off arguably the game of the season in the NFL, like not just the Eagles season, but like football in general. A thrilling victory over the Buffalo Bills, 37-34. We had a Jake Elliott, 62-yard field goal to send it to overtime.
Yeah.
And we had Jalen Hurts orchestrate a game-winning drive in overtime with it was just an electric game, and the vibes had never been higher since last year in the Super Bowl, or before the ending of the Super Bowl, obviously. But things were looking great, and after that,
and then
something happened, and we are currently. Well, we ended the season at 11-6. After that Bills game, we were 10-1. We are the first team in NFL history, I believe, to have 10 wins at that point in the season and not finish with at least 12 wins. Not good.
Historic team. You heard it here first.
Yeah, it's been an historic season. Unfortunately, not in the way that we all were hoping. So I kind of just want to look back at the last 6 games, month and a half, and I want to ask you guys. We do. This is going to be for all Eagles fans watching this episode, and for us tonight. I want this to be like therapy, like a cathartic experience for everyone. We're going to discuss, our frustrations. We're going to really speak with our hearts and our guts. And we're going to put it all on the table tonight. So I want to look back at the last several games, and I want to ask you guys, I want to present this question. What was the turning point? When did everything go to shit this season? I mean, obviously, we're looking at that San Francisco game where there's so much hype going into it, even when the schedule first released, and we saw that San Francisco be coming to the link, coming off that NFC Championship game last year, where we had all the Niners players, Deebo Samuel talking shit, saying, "Oh, we would have won if our quarterback didn't get hurt," blah blah blah, and all that hype going into that game, and they smacked our asses. They destroyed us at home, it was a complete embarrassment.
Correct.
So that's where really, I mean, from there on out, from there on to the rest of the season, obviously it's been bad. But that's the obvious answer. But I want to see what you guys think. Where do you think this season went to shit?
If you listen to our last Eagles episode, you'll know how discontented I was with the Eagles offense, coming off of a season where it looked like we could do whatever we wanted on the field whenever we wanted. I was expecting a little bit more of that this season, and week one, first couple weeks, it really did not come through at all, right? I think I said that the offense looked stale. There were some ill-advised play calls in there, and the offense never, to me, the offense never felt like it had that spark. Whereas last year, it felt like we always just had a fire going, you know? So I think for me, the turning point of the season was preseason when, all the folks that put together all the wonderful work last season departed the Philadelphia Eagles organization. I think the talent of the players individually this season helped them to this 11-6 record. But I will say that a lot of the wins this season were kind of nail biters. Like, they weren't guaranteed like they were last year. So I think at least a little bit we're lucky to be 11-6. Don't really know what the problem is. Don't know how to fix it. Somebody else, please talk.
That's listen, that's a pretty that's I wasn't expecting that answer. The preseason. But yeah, I mean,
I have a secondary answer.
Yeah,
which is when the fans were standing outside the link with the sign that said "Run the ball,
run the ball."
What game was that? Week it was before that. Yeah,
was that after
that's the other turning point?
Was that after the Cowboys game or after the Seahawks game?
Probably the Cowboys game.
One of those games.
It was pretty early in the season, but
yeah, that's I I do agree with you with what you said though, and we talked about this in our midseason recap. Like, every win has been like you had to sweat it out. I'm looking at the schedule now, and I think there's only 2 wins this year that were relatively comfortable, or decided by more than 10 points, or by 10 points or more, and that was the first Bucs game where they won 25-11, and then the Dolphins game where they won 31-17. Besides that, I mean, every win has been single digits, and like it feels like they're either, well, for the most part, it feels like they're just, the defense is basically bending to the very point of breaking, but not quite breaking at the end. I think of the Cowboys game, the first Cowboys game, where Dallas is just driving down the field with no problems, and then all of a sudden they stall out in the red zone. It's just been the wins this. I mean, even when they were 10-1, there were holes in the ship, but the ship wasn't sinking. The ship was staying afloat, and I think that the Eagles clearly have a ton of talent. I think a lot of that talent was disguising a lot of the coaching decisions, play calls, etc. But obviously, the league caught on to what the Eagles were doing, and then it became an issue. Like, the coaching, and like for me, the coaching became such an issue that the talent couldn't overcome it. And then the talent they did have, either got tired or whatever, had their will broken, this last month and a half. But Chris, how about you? What do you where do you see what do you pinpoint as the turning point of this season?
Yeah, when did you start to die inside the season?
Well,
when did your soul start to crush?
I kind of think there were a few. To me, that second, the Cowboys loss, I think that and the Niners loss kind of showed our team and sort of proved kind of what the narrative was around the league, that like we were sort of like pretenders. And, I think it was hard for, obviously fans, but I think the team saw that they just didn't stack up against those caliber of teams. And I think kind of like from that point, I really do think that a lot of the players kind of, so to speak, sort of laid down and died in a way. I also think that stretch of the season, I just think it beat us up, like mentally and physically. I mean, I can't help but think the last month that offensively and defensively, our team just has looked lethargic at best. There's a lot of other reasons, but I think the players just kind of lost that killer mentality. I mean, I've not seen that this season like I saw last year. We've not walked into every game like with, insane confidence. Like, you know what I mean? Like I literally felt last year, like every week, that we were gonna put up 30 plus points and stomp everybody, which clearly wasn't the case. But I really think an interesting point is I think the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks loss that killed me on the inside, but I really think that was a hard blow because we found ourselves like basically not in a shootout, but in a battle with Drew Lock. And I think when you look at a team that just came out of a Super Bowl last year and then to be, struggling and ultimately lose to Drew Lock, I don't know. That can't feel good. Yeah. You know what I mean? That can't feel good as a team and an organization. And certainly, that pissed me off royally. But I think another downfall too is I think when we shifted from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. Now that is sort of like pick your poison. I by no means like either of them. But I think more than the actual change in maybe scheme or terminology, I think the most detrimental part of that change was that the team saw that even the coaches don't really believe in each other. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that kind of showed like this sort of wavering, right? Where, Sirianni sort of like kind of using like scapegoats almost. And I think that just, I don't think that resonated well with really anyone. I also don't think that you change defensive coordinators in the middle of a season. I mean, again, I've not played football, but I would assume that, to learn and spend all those months in the offseason learning the defensive scheme, your assignments, the terminology, just all of that stuff and all the nuances. And then to have a new coordinator come in and try to sort of patch things together. I mean, it's clear to say the defense has been worse with Matt Patricia. I don't know what that experiment was. I mean, we've seen that he's outside of New England. I mean, he's been nothing but a failure. And I don't know why we were going in that direction. There were other, I think, more glaring things to change, i.e. Brian Johnson. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of the three areas. I don't think it was one thing that turned the season, but I think all of those things, I mean, there's clearly something going on that's deeper than just bad play calling and, just bad play.
Right.
And we can kind of get into it in a little while. I would like to sort of look at stats a little bit, like season stats. But I know for a fact that our sacks were down huge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say
every broadcast.
Yeah, I want to say last year it was like what 60, 70, like high 60s.
No, they were on a record pace. Like they were going to have the most sacks in NFL history, like surpassing the 85 Bears, which
and this year
I think
it was like 40.
Yeah, it's been like night and day. The pass rush has been non-existent.
Exactly. So, that's just one of the stats I want to look at further into the episode. But, that and also points allowed,
Oof.
These offenses are cutting through us like a hot knife through butter. Or is it a knife through hot butter?
Through hot butter also technically works.
Hot knife.
They both work.
So, that's kind of where I stand. I think there were a few things that sort of change the tide, but who knows? I mean, I'm not giving up hope yet.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good point about the defensive coordinators, right? And showing your players that, there's some wavering, some lack of confidence even between the coaching staff.
Yeah, there's clearly some level of dysfunction.
Yeah. And
for a change like that to be made, especially in the way that they did it. I think that was also pretty shitty.
Such a weird way to go about it.
You know, it's like you see sometimes in like big companies where like instead of like firing somebody, they sort of give them like a promotion, but like to sort of like get them the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this felt like. And it was just weird. I'm sure the players, you know, didn't gravitate towards that. And I think it was a bad look for who knows really who made the decision. You know, Sirianni is just Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman's puppet at the end of the day. So I think kind of, I don't know who made the decision, but either way, it doesn't look good to anyone.
Yeah. For me, like, I don't know what the problem is, but like them making the switch to Matt Patricia to try to get some fix to like stop the bleeding and it being worse, like it makes me think like, do you know what the problem is? Like,
exactly.
Probably not.
Exactly. Otherwise, you could just, you know, you could work on fixing it with the current staff. And I think it says a lot of things. And there's a reason why you don't see that happen very often, even with teams that are totally shitting the bed. It's just coaching changes in the middle of the season is kind of like a no-no. Although I will give a hard pass. If they had made any changes with the offensive coordinator, I would have given them a pass on that.
Keen listeners can tell that Chris does not like the offensive play calling.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody does. We'll get to that.
We'll get into that shortly. But just to piggyback off the defensive coordinator situation, I've never quite seen or heard of a situation like this happening in the NFL before. I mean, especially with the Eagles. Sirianni said he made the decision, but as you said, like a decision like that isn't happening without the approval or, you know, a bit of nudging from Lurie and Howie Roseman from up top. And when the move happened, like I listened to a lot of the sports talk radio around here. Most people were maybe not happy, but they were optimistic. Like, oh well, how much worse can it get? Can't get any worse. And then, you know, the first game was that Seattle game, and you know, defense in that game minus the last drive played well and gave, you know, I always pin that game on the offense. Like I will die on that hill that the offense let the team down that game, that they should have scored more than 20 points against that abysmal Seattle defense. But obviously, I mean, that defensive effort was mainly due to the fact that Drew Lock is just a bad quarterback.
No. He's elite.
Listen, I will give him credit. That was a really good throw on that last play. And bad coverage by Bradbury, which we've seen all season.
Okay.
But I don't know if that Matt Patricia move was like their way of like trying to light a fire under the players' asses. Like, look, like your play on the field is resulting in guys losing their jobs, even though, you know, Desai is still getting paid his normal salary as defensive coordinator. It was just a quiet little title change, which was so strange in the first place. Like they tried to keep it a secret, but like obviously you're not going to keep anything a secret from the Philly media. Like they're always going to find out what's happening.
It looked very dysfunctional, which it is, you know, and I think that's just a bad image. But let's not ignore the fact that, you know, Howie Roseman needs to take a lot of the blame here. I know that we praise how he's doing it again. He's fleecing everybody. Listen, he's the one that let those pieces go. Edwards, CJ, right? Like we lost a lot of talent on defense, and it showed. I mean, I got to be honest. The defense on paper, there's a lot of holes, i.e. linebackers, right? The secondary, not great. Darius Slay's our best corner. And listen, he's not the youngest guy. He's definitely outside of his prime, you know. Not that I don't love him, but you know what I mean. Like Bradbury was an absolute shell of himself. I think he's cooked. I do also think, though, he's more of a zone guy.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think they just had him playing too much man. And it was another, it goes back to coaches too, like just not knowing your players and your talent and what everyone is good at, and then setting them up, putting them in a position to succeed, forcing some kind of scheme that is clearly not working over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, before we move on, because this is getting into like, who do we blame for this downward spiral? But before we move on, I just want to give my turning point of the season. And for me, like, I look at the San Fran game, they got blown out. Like, clearly, like, that was a heartbreaking loss and just a demoralizing loss. But for me, like, I always was going to that game being like, the Niners have so much more to play for. Like, they've been hyping this game up in their locker room for a year. Like, they are frothing at the mouth to get back into the link and have some revenge on the Eagles. And the Eagles were coming off a really emotional win against the Bills. And, I wouldn't have been, I was surprised in the way they lost. Going into that game, I was like, I think, it's going to be close, but, I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles lose. But the way they lost was just really demoralizing.
Yeah.
Listen, that game, I was able to kind of sweep that under the rug pretty quickly because of, the emotion on the Niners side. The Cowboys game, even, I know, is another blowout, another demoralizing loss to your division, to your most hated rival. But that was the second game of the season, and the Eagles had gotten the better of Dallas in Philly. So, the Eagles never beat Dallas twice in the season. So that was another loss where I'm like, I know they got blown out, but like, it's the second game. They won the first one. Let's sweep that under the rug. The turning point of the season is the Seattle game, and I don't think it's even close. They went into that game, I think there was a sense of relief, like, oh, we're finally playing, a team that's not completely stacked and, has a ton of motivation against us. They had to travel to Seattle, which I feel like has been a house of horrors for them for as long as I can remember. I don't remember the last time they won in Seattle. And listen, they had that game in their reach. They were, I forget the score exactly, like at halftime went up, but they had a lead. They had a pretty they had a healthy lead. I think it was like a 10-point lead, perhaps, or something like that. But a lead they should have been able to hold. And the fact that they gave up that 90+ yard drive that Drew Lock to win the game for them, and then the way and even after that, like to get the ball back with time and timeout, and to be at the 50, and to call, and I know there have been reports that have come out since this game. At the time, we were killing Brian Johnson, being like, you're calling a deep route to AJ Brown when you just have to get like another 10, 15 yards to be in Jake Elliott's field goal range, who had just tied a game on a 62-yard field goal a couple weeks back. And he threw a pick. Comes out, apparently, AJ and Jalen did a little improvisation on that play and decided to run a go pattern for some reason. I'm not quite sure.
I don't buy that.
I believe it, but
I don't.
I kind of do. But again, like, that's like, why are they even doing that? Like, that is just a dumb play. Like, I know, listen, you're trying to win the game with that play, I guess, but you got to be smart in that situation. And that was just like a bad decision by Jalen. And then, we've seen the screenshots, like Gainwell sitting to the left, like the left of the line, like at the line of scrimmage, like completely unguarded and with like 15, 20 yards of green grass in front of him. If he just catches the ball and runs, and you have a timeout and you can stop the clock, and then you can kick a field goal to tie the game. That the way they lost that game was the moment where it felt like things were just spiraling out of control, for me at least. Mm-hmm. And I think as the team, they were like, like I said, they were going to that game being like, okay, well, we can definitely beat this team, even though we're on the road. They had the game in their grasp, and they lost in like the most heartbreaking way possible. So that for me was the game that broke the camel's back, and that's what really sent this season into a tailspin into what we're looking at now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that's a little bit different of a question than what the turning point was, though, because I agree with you that it is the start and or a continuation of a spiral. But I think, a spiral has to start turning at some point, and I think that point's just earlier than that Seahawks game.
I get that, but also like if they had won that, if they had gotten by and won that game, then there's a sigh of relief. Like, okay, we got to win. We've got the Giants coming up. We've got the Cardinals coming up, and the Giants again. We can beat these teams. Just winning that game would have meant so much to this team, and then they could have finished. Who knows? I really think if they win that game, they obviously won the Giants game anyway, but I don't think they lose that Cardinals game. I think that locker room is just feeling way more confident, and then they definitely don't get down 24-0 against the Giants in the last game of the season, and they also would have had the division wrapped up by then too. So, yeah, I mean that game, losing that game took away the division, took away a home playoff game, and gave them no shot at getting the first round bye, the top seed in the NFC.
Yeah,
that put that to sleep. Yeah. So for me, that's my turning point. Is that game like the Cowboys and the Niners loss? I can forgive that. I cannot forgive losing to Seattle in the fashion that they did and the implications it had on their season and the remaining games of the season, because it was a trickle down effect from that game on for me. So anyway, we're going to move on to the fun part of the discussion. Who is to blame?
Yes.
I know Chris has got his finger ready to point, and I wonder who's going to be pointing at. So Chris, I know you're excited to rant a little bit, so I'm going to give you the floor here and just who do you blame?
I'm revving right now.
I know.
Let me cook, baby. Let me cook.
So who do you blame for this shit show?
There's a lot of people to blame. I know you think that I'm going to say Brian Johnson, and he is the main culprit, but I really think if I want to say him, I have to really go to Sirianni. And this is in the last couple weeks that I really started to point my finger more towards him. As the head coach, he's the one, like, obviously we lost two coordinators that we know now were really carrying our team. And I think Sirianni replaced them with two unqualified, unproven guys, because again, I think it goes back to, the Eagles notoriously have, like, in recent years, puppet coaches, right? And so I think these were like puppet guys, right? Like, I could just kind of control them and it'll basically be my team. And so I think you really have to point your finger most at Nick Sirianni for employing the guys that he did, who, in my opinion, were clearly not ready. I mean, I know the argument for Brian Johnson was like, oh, he like grew up or like knew Jalen as a kid, which, like, what does that have to do with calling plays in the NFL? I don't know. So I think he's to blame, but I really want to pop off on Brian Johnson. Couple things here. I think statistically, you're going to look at Jalen and say, okay, he took a step back in quite a few ways. But I think you have to look at the root cause of that. And I think the root cause of that is that Brian Johnson's offense was so anemic that I think it put Jalen almost from the get-go, like game one, into I need to play hero ball all the time mode.
Yep.
And you see it in the turnovers. You see it in the, the deep shots that aren't hitting, the fumbles. I don't know you can't really say too much about that. Sometimes that's just situational, but
yeah,
a lot of bad decision making by Jalen, not taking what the defense was giving you. We kind of saw that as a theme throughout the year, which was not the case last season. And I really think that was kind of, whether that was sort of coached into him or whether he just felt like he needed to do that because Brian Johnson, he couldn't get them down the field. How many 3rd and longs did we have to deal with?
Too many.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm tush push, whatever. Listen, it's cool that it works so much, but I cannot stand the reasoning like, so we're going to call really shitty plays, bubble screens, QB draws out the ass. Because every drive, it's 4 down territory, no matter where we are on the field kind of thing. And I can't stand that. You know what I mean? Because why do we have to keep doing the tush push? Somebody's going to get hurt from that eventually. But I really just think, Jalen kind of felt like he needed to put the whole team on his shoulders. And, as much as his numbers, took a little bit of a hit this year, I mean, I still think without him, we are like an 8-win, 7-win team. There were quite a few times where, although he tried to put the team on his back and failed, there were quite a few times where he did actually. And I think Brian Johnson's plays forced, I know, Ryan, we've talked about this. I think they really forced Jalen to make the most insane low percentage throws like so frequently.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. Ball and listen, a lot of times he did make the throws, but there were a lot of times he didn't. And it just seemed like, why are we putting him in position to have to do that so often?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's had a couple of egregious interceptions this year. I remember there's one against the Vikings, I think, early on in the season where it was like, there was just like a linebacker in the middle of the field and he just didn't see him. It was just like one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen him throw. I do agree with you that Jalen feels like he needs to, he's definitely playing a little more hero ball, to kind of make up for the play calling. I said this to you earlier in the season, and I'm going to say it again, and it's going to hurt, but I've seen a lot of Carson Wentz in Jalen this season.
No,
I have. The comparison is like, it's so obvious to me, and I'm not like, listen, I'm not saying Jalen's a bust or he's done or anything. Like, I love Jalen. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. I think he's going to be the Eagles quarterback for a while. But I'm getting a lot of flashbacks to like 2018, 2019, early 2020 Wentz, holding the ball too long, taking unnecessary sacks, throwing deep balls into double coverage, getting it picked off, just not making good decisions and not taking what the defense is giving him. So as much as, I think at the end of the day, I blame the coaching primarily for the results in the field. But Jalen has just not had a good season. He hasn't had a season especially coming off last season where the bar was set so incredibly high. He's coming off arguably the best game of his football life in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. And to what he's been this year, he's been like middle of the pack in regards to quarterback stats, QBR, whatnot. Middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Like, I know we were looking at the quarterback situation, the landscape in the NFL and the NFC specifically going into this year, and we're like, oh, Jalen's like a top 3 quarterback in the NFC easily. He's been like middle. Like, I don't even know if he's in the top 10 for NFC this year. Like, he's just been like so disappointing, and he's had good games. The Bills game, he obviously scored that game-winning touchdown. It was awesome. He's had some moments, but he just hasn't been a wow season from Jalen by any means.
No, and I'm going to say this, and the Eagles love to do this shit. And if you're a real Eagles fan, you know this. I don't think he's been even close to 100% the whole season.
That too.
That knee is very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me because if you've watched him all season, he's not had the mobility that he did last year. And then on top of the overuse of these designed QB draws, he hasn't looked as explosive. So the running hasn't been as, you know what I mean? Now that number is going to be skewed by all the tush push touchdowns he's gotten, but the running to the eye test hasn't looked as good. And again, I don't think he's been healthy entirely. And, he doesn't like to disclose injuries, and then the Eagles also don't. So it's like, there's a lot of cover up there. So I suspect that's played a role. And, I think what's happening is, obviously the organization sees a ton of value in him. So unfortunately, and I hope this isn't like a Carson Wentz vibe, but I think they're starting to coach some of the physicality out of him. Like, what you've seen a lot this year is these QB draws that, they do get kind of blown up a bit, but he's just dropping down. But you don't want your quarterback getting rocked. I get it, but it's there's just a little less physicality from him. And maybe maybe that's just kind of my perspective and it's not actually true, but I feel like, he's just been a little more tentative overall this year, holding the ball too long, not as explosive and, not taking off maybe when he should. I can't totally blame. I don't know. I just find every time I look at his performance this season, I just can't help but go back to Brian Johnson, just, setting him up for failure. We have two elite, I think that one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. And here we are, relying on a play that gets us 2 yards by, crushing the entire offense under one big pile. You know what I mean? Like that kills me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks. Well, a side note really quick. I cringe whenever I keep seeing the Jalen Hurts rush touchdown record. He set the NFL record for rushing touchdowns in a season. I don't even read the comments because I know what they're gonna fucking say.
Yes,
1 yard butt push doesn't count.
Yeah,
I'm I kind of agree. It's kind of cheap, but I mean, listen, it works. So whatever, and it helps me in fantasy. So I'll also take that.
No, I'll never hate on it, but I just my point being is we have such an explosive offense in terms of actual personnel and at the skill positions, and it blows my mind how we're not marching up and down the field just wiping our ass with these teams.
Yeah.
The coach, and this is where I blame the coaching. And we can talk about how much talent there is on the offense. There clearly is a bunch of talent on the offense side of the football. It's the way they use this talent that just baffles me and drives me fucking insane. On the bubble screens, why is Kenny Gainwell getting the ball with Devontae Smith blocking?
Yep. Listen,
this skinny they call him Skinny Batman.
Listen,
you don't want Skinny Batman blocking for you.
Not only is Devontae Smith responsible for a key block, he's responsible for holding a block for 10 fucking seconds.
Yeah. I mean, use AJ, use Goddard to block big, strong bodies and have Devontae catch the ball.
Here we go. Why don't we just fuck the bubble screen altogether?
Well, that too.
I do agree with that. Swift.
I do agree with that. I never want to see another fucking bubble screen in my entire life, and I know they're going to run one in this playoff game coming up. I know it's going to happen.
It's this this bullshit need to constantly get to the outside, but whatever happened to just going up the gut with a good old fashioned handoff, right? We have an elite offensive line. Why the fuck do we have, you know what I mean? Exactly. Devontae Smith out there blocking, which, he got rolled up on and hurt. Or, last year it was Zach Pascal's in, he's going to block. Dude, that shit's stupid.
Yeah. I'm tired of hearing about these receivers that are so good at blocking. Listen, blocking is important in an NFL offense. You need to be able to block, but what's more important is catching the fucking ball.
Yeah.
Throwing and catching the ball is more important.
Also,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm so hot. This could be a 4-hour episode.
I said this is a cathartic experience. I want you to just put it all out there.
We might need a part 2, but to your point about the bubble screens, in my opinion, Kenny Gainwell has seen way too many touches this season compared to, I think, touches that should have obviously gone to DeAndre Swift. Boston Scott, where the hell has he been?
He has disappeared. I know he hasn't been 100% healthy all season, but he has just... I love Boston. I think if he gets the ball enough, he can actually be a really solid running back.
I do too, right?
Yeah, he's been written out of the playbook, basically.
Okay. All right. What the hell did we sign Rashad Penny for?
Yeah, that is...
Because
that's the most baffling
last game.
oh, we're saving him for the playoffs. Well, bitch, we barely got into the playoffs, and who knows where things go from here. But let's say we get bounced. That was a giant waste of time.
Yep.
You know, if you really want to mix people in, why don't you mix the good ones in? Kenny Gainwell had he played well in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Listen, I don't hate Kenny Gainwell.
Neither do I.
I have no problem with him getting the ball sometimes, but it's just the situations he's getting the ball, like in the red zone and in key spots. Like, why? It's like they use him as like the third down back, but DeAndre Swift is arguably a better pass catcher and route runner than anyone. Like,
he's more explosive.
Yeah,
he's
in the running back room at least.
DeAndre Swift on this team with this roster should be your every down back.
Yeah, he's got the entire skills. He should be like, like a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, basically. Like, he could be used that way, and maybe he's not as skilled of a runner, but I mean, he can catch the ball and run routes. Like, you've seen it in Detroit. Like, he can definitely do it, and they just refuse to they refuse to do it consistently. Like, that is such an underused part of their offense.
But let's hear from Derick though. Who are you pointing your finger at, Derick?
I don't know who to blame, y'all. I don't really know how the administrative parts of the game work. 2, I just don't know. Like, we don't look good on either side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
there's just so much to point at. Like, I feel like if I name somebody or just close my eyes and throw a dart and like land on someone's name, it's probably going to be at least partially true.
Like, I agree with that.
I don't know.
There's plenty of blame to go around. Like I said earlier, you can't leave Howie out of the mix here because the defense that we have, I mean, we're relying on some old pass rushers. We're also, we have some good talent, but we're not using them where the pass rush didn't exist. Howie just doesn't give a shit about linebackers.
That is just like a baffling thing to me. I know the Eagles in general haven't valued linebackers like
ever.
What was the last great one they had?
Exactly.
Jeremiah Trotter? But Jordan, what was that? What was that kid's name? Jordan Hicks. He was good, but he couldn't stay healthy.
I mean, I remember Kiko Alonso. They're big.
Oh my!
Their big acquisition.
He had that awesome interception against Atlanta in the first game of the season, and then just didn't do anything. The rest
disappeared.
That was traded LaShawn McCoy for him.
God damn!
Are you kidding me? All right, that's in the past.
But yeah, so. And then I said a little while ago, I can't help but repeat myself because these things just blow my mind. But like our secondary, who's looking at that secondary and being like, "Damn, that's impressive," And not for nothing, who the hell's the leader in the defense, right? Remember, we had we need like a Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah, I do miss Malcolm so much.
Brian Dawkins, right? We need. Listen, I don't care if you don't have the talent, but we need like the voice. We need the leader. I don't, BG and Fletcher, but they're not in the secondary. Like, you know what I mean? We need somebody in the secondary. I think Bradbury, like I said, got exposed. I think he's cooked. I honestly think that Super Bowl just killed him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, listen, I do blame Howie for the personnel and defense to an extent, especially linebacker. We're going to keep saying that. TJ Edwards went and had a great season. I think he went to Chicago.
Dude, he had
having a great season. Year. I think he's going to the Pro Bowl. Great season for Chicago. In the secondary, cornerback, I can't really blame Howie for that, really, because, Darius Slay is, he's been really good. And even this season, he's been good. But Bradbury's coming off an all-pro season. He was really good last year. Who would have predicted that he would fall off a cliff like this? I can't really blame Howie for that, for putting his faith in a guy that was having, coming off a career year, and then him just shitting the bed. No one really saw that coming. And then, it's safety. I like Blankenship. He's a good little player.
Dude, I like Reed because he plays hard. He
plays really hard. I like appreciate
that a lot. But, bro, I know he's like our leading tackler, but I just find there's a lot of times where he's just in the wrong place or he misses a key tackle. I mean, God, has there ever been a year that the Eagles we've not yelled at them about shitty tackling? I mean, that's just like an epidemic within the organization. But,
yeah,
dude, I can't, I don't know. I can't. Yeah, the linebacker situation is the most glaring to me, and the lack of pass rush, which, again, I think that's a little bit more scheme than actual talent. I think Hassan Reddick, what happened to him?
Well, you know what happened to him is that he's in coverage.
Exactly.
Why
they drop him back? They just keep dropping him back. Yeah.
Did you see the first play of the Giants game this past week? He dropped back in coverage. The first defensive snap, he's in coverage. Like, what are we doing? And that's all coaching. That is 100%. All coaching. You're putting these players in a position they're not used to. They don't feel comfortable in.
Also, a position it's not their skill set. Like, play to their strengths. Like, every coach should know that, right? You play to your players' strengths. Why would I ask you to do something that I know you're not very good at over and over and over and over and over and over and over again?
And that is, and that's why. Yeah, and that's why if I point the finger at I can't really point at one single person, even though between all the coaches I do blame Brian Johnson because I feel like this offense is underachieving. The defense, I didn't have high expectations for the defense just based off the personnel this year. I thought they would be way better than they've been. They've been absolute Swiss cheese out there.
I literally texted you that during one of the games, just a block of Swiss cheese.
Just a block of Swiss cheese. It was perfect. But this is an epidemic on both sides of the ball, just not using the talent you have to the best of their ability, and not using the skill sets that these players have, like putting Hassan Reddick into coverage, not using the middle of the field with AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert. Like, out of all the NFL offenses, I don't have stats in front of me, but the Eagles use the middle of the field like barely at all. Like, they're always attacking the outside.
It's the opposite. That's the opposite of Wentz.
Yeah, like the middle of the field should be a quarterback's best friend. Like, Dallas Goedert should be putting up Pro Bowl numbers every year. He should be like getting like 70 to 90 catches a year. And AJ Brown, like, where are the slants
all day?
Where are the slants? There
was
him
in Michael Thomas mode.
Yeah, he's a big, strong, physical receiver. Like, he's gonna catch the ball in like one-on-one coverage more times than not. Just let him, get him in space. And when he gets the ball in his hands, he's like a running back. Just give him the ball in space, run a short pattern, let him make some yards after the catch. Devontae Smith, the same thing. He's a great route runner. He's not the fleetest of foot. He's got speed, but he's not. I wouldn't qualify him as fast. Like, not Quez Watkins fast. Quez doesn't have hands.
That's a useless speed.
Exactly. But yeah, they're not using their players. Like, they're not using the talent they have in the way it should be used.
I agree.
And clearly Shane Steichen did when he was
But here's the thing. As fans, we can identify these things. How? I mean, when you have this much talent, it's almost harder to be this shitty. You know what I mean? Than it is to just do what your players are good at. It's like, we don't have to outsmart everyone. Sometimes you just throw the ball to your best damn people. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real novel idea, right? Give the ball to the guy that you're paying a gajillion dollars to, who's like a top 5 fucking receiver and is also like basically the size of the Hulk. You know what I mean?
Let's do that, but not when you're at the 50-yard line with 15 seconds left and you need a field goal to tie the game.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, though. I do kind of want to bring this up is, you said not using players to the best of their ability. And I think that shows, like, if we just talk about turnovers, both on offense and also takeaways on defense, turnovers have been insane on offense. Mm-hmm. I mean, insane. Last week, against the Giants, what do we have, 4?
Yeah, that's
pretty much the average.
The second half, so I don't know.
Like 3 to 4 is like our pretty much our average. And then what's the last? I mean, I think we had an interception last week, but
Oh yeah, well Mariota had a really bad one on his first play on the first play of the game.
Yeah.
But what's the?
That was
I mean, I honest to God can barely remember any takeaways this year. Fumble recoveries, interceptions.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. The turnover differential is way
Insane.
in the negative.
Insane.
They have not forced they had the Sidney Brown pick 6 a couple weeks ago. That was awesome.
Yeah,
that was great. That was the only play they made all game though. And they let up a touchdown every other drive of that game basically. But yeah, no, the lack of turnovers on the defensive side has been like crazy. Like I know you lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he was the reason for so many turnovers last year. Like he was setting like a record for picks from a safety. But yeah, I mean the guys just aren't even in like a position. Like there's been a couple times this year where like maybe like Bradbury's dropped the ball here and there where he had a chance to pick it, but it's like the guys aren't even in like a position to make a play on the ball.
Here's the thing too: when you have absolutely no pressure on the quarterback, right?
Well, that too, yeah.
You're not going to get as many takeaways. And let's look at the third down defense. Abysmal.
Oh my God, it's so
like
bad.
I actually laugh. I think like third down is like, most teams are like obviously, happy to get to third down, so we can force fourth down. The Eagles are the opposite. Like we're happier on first down than we are on third down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they're going to convert.
I only feel confident if it's like 3rd and 15 or more.
Not even.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is like now with every team going for it on fourth down now, like they'll let up like 12 yards and then
they'll convert on
and they're going to go
down.
for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
boy,
the blame can go anywhere. It's just it's just been a disaster, and I don't know. Maybe part of me thinks though, like, what the hell? Like, I mean, you look at a lot of teams in the league, and it's like, shit. There's so many organizations that would kill to be 11-6, but I just think it's the way in which we've laid down and just that lack of fight. But I think the positive is this, right?
We're going to see some positives.
We've lost so much of the momentum. I almost feel like we're due. Right? We're due for it to swing back our way. So maybe this is how we drew it up. Maybe this is all part of the plan.
So you're saying there's no further down we can go.
Yeah, right. Because the
only way to go is up.
They always say you want to go into the postseason hot. Well, we're trying to do it a little different. We're going in ice cold, right? We're doing like a fucking polar bear plunge right now. And hopefully maybe we just, I don't know, maybe we ride the wave.
Well, there's no wave right now, but maybe if they win on Monday. But I mean, listen, I get if there's any solace you can take out of this, it's that in 2017 they weren't going into the playoffs playing their best. They were playing actually very, very badly, and they were. I remember they played the starters for the first half of that last game of the season against Dallas, and Nick Foles looked awful. And then they went in and they squeezed by the Falcons, and then the rest is history.
We also had a much, much less talented roster that season.
Yeah, true. I mean, defensively, I think that team was way better. Especially in the secondary.
Okay, maybe, but I think offensively, I mean, nobody knew what Nick Foles was going to do, and I don't think Nick Foles could ever do that again, even if you put him in that situation, right? But I mean running back wise, we were all right, but receiver wise, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey, that was like his last year that his body was still like sort of together. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
even then, even in that game, it wasn't together because he had torn labrum or something. But listen, I mean, but they also had the benefit of playing at home. They had they had the 1 seed that year.
Yeah, I just wish, I wish we had the script.
Oh, the NFL script. Yeah,
I wish we had the script just so we could know what was going to happen.
I mean, the NFL knows how popular that Kelsey documentary was, and how much the podcast has popped off. Like, why wouldn't they want a part 2 of a Super Bowl rematch with the Chiefs and the Eagles?
I'll be honest,
Super Bowl, baby.
They
don't want T Swift at the Super Bowl.
Oh God, come on! That makes me sad though to think that we could squander such a great offense and and this is Jason Kelsey's potential last year. Like that makes me sad to know that like if we don't hit this year, then it's like next year. I mean, we got a lot of holes to fill, or at least that big hole,
Yeah.
And I don't know. The tush push goes away, I think, without. I don't think it goes away, but Jason Kelsey's a pivotal point of that as well.
It might not be as effective. You're right. Man, that's one thing that's been lingering. Like, I don't think enough people are talking about it. That he might have played, and not just him. Like, he got Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, possibly Lane Johnson. Who knows? They might have played their last home game as an Eagle. Last week, which is just like, you don't think about that because you're so frustrated with the team that you can't really step back and just like take that in. Like that's a pretty monumental moment. Unfortunately, it was it didn't end in the best way. I mean, but
I just can't. God,
they have to go into this playoff game coming up. With the motivation that, win for these guys, show some damn heart and play for your teammates, for your leaders, that have been there and trying their best to inspire the guys. And if anything, it can be this year's version of the dog mask. Like, I don't know, get a Kelsey mask, get a Brandon Graham mask, win for these guys, because they're all timers and they really deserve better than what's happening right now.
I agree. And if that's not enough motivation, then I really don't know what is. But I think I really do. I'm drinking the copium here. I'm hitting the copium. I think there's a fire lit under Nick Sirianni's ass right now. I think his seat is scalding hot. Right?
I don't disagree with that.
We fired Doug Peterson, who won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I'm hoping that is like a full 180 turn, just all around. I wish Nick would stop yapping, you know what I mean, to the fans and all that bullshit that he does, and just coach the team to another super. Like, let's get to the Super Bowl again. I trust in Jalen. I don't give a shit what the regulars. I look in that dude's face and I just fucking trust him.
There's just something about him.
He's got that energy.
Yeah.
He's got that vibe. All right. Well, before we close out here, I do want to pose one more question to you guys, and it's kind of based off what you said about Nick. What would you guys do if you're Jeffrey Lurie? Would you, assuming this is assuming they lose, even if they win, if they get embarrassed the next round, or if they lose Monday, based off everything that's happened, over the last several weeks, would you fire Nick Sirianni? Would you move on from Nick Sirianni, and look into coach, like, I don't know, look elsewhere? I mean, we've got Bill Belichick likely going to be available. We've got Mike Vrabel, who was just fired, I believe, today or yesterday. And then Pete Carroll, who surprisingly will not be back as the head coach for Seattle, may stay with the organization.
Yeah.
He might. I don't think that's confirmed yet, but if he's offered a head coaching opportunity elsewhere for a team, say the Eagles, that has a ready-made roster, right? Well, at least an offense that's ready to win now. Would you make that call? Do you think that he's lost the locker room to a point of no return? Like, is there any fixing this? Like, what would you guys do?
Derick, I'll let you go.
This is going to be really similar to my last answer. I don't fucking know. Something in me says don't fire him, but keep your options open. I mean, we know that it's, kind of cutthroat, right? Like, people are competing for jobs. And I think Chris is right? There is a fire under Sirianni's ass.
For sure.
But does this add to it? Yes. Will that do anything for his performance? I don't know. So that's where I stand. What about you guys?
So for me, there's a couple scenarios here. So we saw the identity of the team last season with two, good coordinators in position. And then Sirianni looked like a genius, right? So I think where I'm at is if we need to prioritize an offensive and defensive coordinator. And if we can lock in two guys that have, experience and we're confident can make a huge turn, then I think you keep Sirianni, at least for like another year, because we've seen what he can be if there's, better quality coordinators around him. I think if he's the smartest guy in the room, you're screwed. So really, and listen, he does fit Philly, right? He's got the attitude. He's got I don't hate that.
He looks like a guy you'd run into a Wawa.
Exactly. So listen, a lot of his press conferences and explanations for things I've hated so much, but at the end of the day, I think really this is the kind of team where the offensive and defensive coordinators matter more. You're not talking about a Bill Belichick who everything goes through Bill kind of thing. Second, if we can't do that, then I think we need to bring in a well-experienced head coach who can fill in a lot of those gaps. But having said that, that won't happen. A Bill Belichick, a Mike Vrabel, a Pete Carroll would never come to Philly. They wouldn't even be considered because, again, they cannot be puppets.
True. That's true.
Jeffrey and Howie, listen, they need to be a puppet in one way or another. That's why Doug was button heads, because Doug was not a puppet. So, I think ultimately he stays, and I think they really need to fix the coordinator situation. That would be my first go. But you got to be careful here as an organization, because you have a window of time where you can be in win now mode, look kind of like the Phillies, right? Like you have that window and it doesn't last as long as you like it to. And, we've already seen since last year, we're kind of on the decline, with that window, and we'll see. So you don't want to wait around too long,
Yeah. For me, if I'm guessing what Jeffrey Lurie is going to do, I've got no idea what he's going to do. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets fired. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't get fired. I really think that this week, the outcome of this game is going to say a lot. If they get blown out,
right?
I don't think the Bucs are capable of blowing out any team.
Stop! Don't say that.
I mean, they kicked 3 field goals against the fucking Carolina Panthers, worst team in football.
I can't stand you right now.
I'm just saying,
you're just bringing all the fucking
listen.
The bad juju.
Yeah, you're bringing it all.
The jinxes.
Yeah, this week's gonna really determine, I think, Nick's future. Now, my gut says that he's back next year, and I think it's a good thing that we didn't record this on Monday, because I was really, really upset on Sunday after that game. I was upset. I was upset that I wasn't more upset. That I was more numb and just despondent. Like seeing that 24-0 score at halftime when the starters were playing to the Giants. I know it was week 18, and you don't want to put a lot of stock into a week 18 game, but listen, that game was, you had a chance to win the division still, and that Dallas was losing to Washington at that time. That game was still up in the air. That's they didn't even give a shit.
So, but that's an argument that can be made to fire Sirianni, right? To allow your team to lay down and die. It's not just the number of losses, but it's a lot of the way in which we lost a lot of these games was just flat out just out coached. You know what I mean? We just got burned, and then by the end of the game, it was just I mean, there were a few times this season where I was nodding off during the games. I've never done that. You know what I mean? Because it was just so far gone. So, it's so funny though in Philly, you can go from hero to zero that fast. You know, we were praising Sirianni last year, and now we're basically calling for him to be fired. So, who knows?
Yeah, and what I would do is, again, I'm glad we didn't record this on Monday because I have had some time to think about it and cool off a bit, played some pickleball, blew off some steam. I would bring him back next year, and with the same thing Chris said, you need to make changes at definitely the offensive coordinator position. Like that needs to be addressed and changed as soon as possible when the season's over. You don't want to just hire anybody. You got to make sure you pick the right person. I don't know who that is.
Frank Reich.
I mean,
Frank Reich.
Honestly, I mean, he's an option for sure. But we'll see. I mean,
Frank Reich.
But Frank Reich also has been fired from multiple spots since he's been with the Eagles. So do we really want, I mean, we'll see. But they need to make a change there. On the defensive side, I do think the defense, at least when it was under Desai, at least you weren't seeing like players being used in strange ways that they're not used to being used. So I would be okay with bringing Desai back. I do not want to see Matt Patricia back because I don't think he's got a clue. I feel like he wants to run the defense the way he wants to run it, doesn't give a shit about the personnel he's got, kind of like Chip Kelly did.
I don't know why why did we bring that into our organization to begin with?
I mean, as a consultant or like just to have in the organization, like he's won Super Bowls. He's been around. He knows a thing or two. Like I don't blame them for that. But like putting him in this position and like the performance, like the actual coaching performance has been like just awful. But Desai, if they bring him back, I'm not going to hate it. They need to upgrade the talent on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, you have to move on from Brian Johnson. You have to. I mean,
big agree.
The offense, you got to fix this offense. This offense should be scoring high 20s, low 30s every game.
Every week.
And they should be racking up the yards. And I know, like, they have racked up the yards. Like, they have 2,000-yard receivers. They have a 4,000-yard passing quarterback. They have a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, the numbers are there. But, like, use your eyes when you're watching the game. Like, the offense has no flow. No flow whatsoever. Like, there's no rhythm to the offense. Jalen can't get in a rhythm. The play calling has just been suspect all season, even when they were winning. And you just have to make a change there. So I would bring Nick back, even though, has he lost the locker room? Maybe. I don't think it's beyond repair. I don't know if you heard this story about Jordan Davis. He's apparently been getting fined every week because he's overweight. And he just keeps getting fined. Like, he just hasn't lost the weight.
I mean, I think that presents itself in the fact that they all look tired at this point in the season, which is understandable. But I don't know, that pursuit. What game was that? Was that Dak?
Oh, no, against Josh Allen.
Was it the Bills? Yeah. Dude's got wheels for being like 6,000 pounds. I listen, whatever. Him being overweight is like, it's the least of this team's concerns right now. Like, there is such a big list of problems that need to be fixed. But I think Brian Johnson, I think they need to get rid of him, but I think he needs to be out of the organization. I don't think they need to do this bullshit where they're like, they drop him back. Oh, he's going to be like the quarterback coach again or some shit like that. Like, get him out. I think Frank Reich is such a great, you know what I mean? Guy's got experience. He's got experience with quarterbacks. I mean, look what he did with Carson and Foles. I don't know. I mean, I know he hasn't worked out as a head coach, but he's been on like really dysfunctional organizations, the Colts and the Panthers. Like, that's not a fair shake.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's what I'd like to see. But, we need an identity. That's really what we need. We need an identity. Right now, we don't have one. Somebody needs to get pissed off, and I need to see somebody get pissed.
Well, yeah, I mean,
besides me.
Will, yeah, exactly. Like, besides Eagles fans everywhere.
But
it's the season has not gone the way we thought it was going to, but we do still have a playoff game coming up, so we at least can hang our hat on that, and we can just hope that maybe what Chad Ochocinco said is correct, and that the Eagles are, quote, playing possum, and they're going to turn it on in the playoffs and become the juggernaut we all know they can be. I have no faith that's going to happen, but we'll see. Do you want to do a quick score prediction for Monday or at least like a win-loss prediction.
Yeah.
All right. Chris, what do you think is going to happen Monday?
35-21 Birds.
All right.
No score prediction. I think we're taking the W, though.
All right. I got to keep the faith, and I do think that there's been so much negativity that something's got to give, and this is the most favorable matchup you could have. I think they can beat the Bucs. I think they can certainly beat the Bucs. Like they can do it, and I do think I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything. I think it's going to be another nail biter, but I do think that the Eagles are going to pull this one out. I'll say like 28-24, another nail biter. And then we'll see what happens where they go. If they go to San Fran or whatever, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah, but
all right. I need my blood pressure to return to normal.
Yep, this episode has absolutely shit in my cornflakes. So if you'd like to commiserate, you can reach out to us on Instagram at 5 o'clock sweats, X at 5 o'clock sweats. We're available in video form on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Anything else?
Go Birds.
A very soft-spoken go Birds. But yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I just make us proud, please. Just do something to give us some sort of faith, and do it for Kelsey and do it for BG.
There you go.
God damn it,
yes, sir. Amen. And as always,
stay sweaty.
Did you guys also turn off the game last week?
Oh yeah, I didn't watch. I watched.
Nope.
I turned it off, and then I only watched the second half because it was on in Allie's kitchen, and we were eating. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was just like, it was in my peripheral vision.
Yeah, I had it on, but really, I was playing Counter-Strike.
It was I haven't. I don't think I've ever. It's been. I don't know if I've ever done that.
Yeah, not watch the game to completion.
Yeah, and if I have, it's been like years, like before Carson, before maybe the Chip Kelly era.
I always go to completion.
That's why you were late tonight.
No,
he's busy completing.
You could just told us, man. We would have understood.
All right.
Beating it like it owes me money.